This is a short video review of a early American figure, Abiel Abbot Livermore, that is more of a known figure in the eastern part of the country, but generally he is a lesser known figure. I haven't found much when it comes to his history and biography, but I did find some. I shall read it now. This is from the book History of Keene, from the city of Keene's historical records, and I stumbled across this, which was very helpful. Reverend Abiel Abbot Livermore, I'm guessing that's his degree, doctorate, was born in Wilton, New Hampshire in 1811, prepared for college at Phillips Exeter Academy, graduated at Harvard in 1833 and at Harvard Divinity School in 1836, was ordained and settled over the Unitarian Church in Keene at the close of the same year. Married Elizabeth, daughter of Reverend Jacob Abbott. His father was an intelligent farmer, prominent in his town and community. His mother, I'm going to turn this down. His mother was a member of the distinguished Abbott family of Wilton. He took high rank as a scholar and was a genuine, refined, high-minded man. Reverend Dr. Morrison, editor of the Christian Register, wrote of him, "The relation of the young pastor and his wife, a fitting helpmeet for such a man, to the people of their parish and to the whole community in which they lived, has always seemed to me as happy a relation as I have ever known." While in Keene, he did much for the cultivation of literary taste in the community, organized a large book club which contained all the choice periodicals of the day, and encouraged the study of the higher literary works, not only of English but of German and other authors. He also edited a small paper, the Social Gazette, for the publication of the literary efforts of the young, and was always the beloved pastor and cherished friend. His lectures to young men and his prize essay on the Mexican War were published, and he edited the Cheshire collection of hymns. After nearly 14 years of very active labor in Keene, his health gave way, and he was compelled to resign his charge. Believing that he might continue his work in a milder climate, he accepted a call to Cincinnati, Ohio in 1850, where he remained 6 years. After that, for 7 years, he was a pastor of a church in Yonkers, New York, and in 1863 he was chosen president of the theological school at Meadville, Pennsylvania, and for 27 years filled that position with remarkable ability and success. Besides the works already mentioned in many articles for various periodicals, he published a volume of sermons, commentaries on the New Testament, which he began while in Keene, and for several years while at Yonkers he edited the Christian Enquirer. His last work was that of writing the history of his native town, Wilton. Dr. Livermore deserves to be most gratefully remembered among us. His rounded completeness of life was matched by an equally happy poise and symmetry of character, a conjunction as admirable as it is rare. No breath of calumny ever ventured to question his integrity. His graceful and unfailing courtesy was a constant rebuke to our modern boorishness, a man made to be loved. He died at Wilton in 1892. And that is what I have for the biography. One of the books, let's see if I could come across the history of Wilton, I have not come across. The books I have are mainly his best known work. And this is a picture of Abiel Abbot Livermore, Reverend. He was a reformist, minister, educator, and author. And I actually have some intros of his book that he wrote. Let's see which one I could go to first. This will do Anti-Tobacco. He published this book opposing the use of tobacco in early America. And I will read the face of this book. It is a legal proverb that possession is 9 points in the law. Judging by this standard, he must be a daring innovator who would venture to attack the well-nigh universal habit of using tobacco by chewing, smoking, or snuffing. We have only to pass through the streets of our cities and villages and see the numerous shops devoted to the traffic, or witness the smokers of pipes, cigars, or cigarettes in public places, and on the routes of travel, the uncleanliness of cars and steamers, to be assured that if universality is a sufficient proof of the merit of any habit or practice, the use of the weed is established beyond the possibility of overthrow. To attack it seems as idle as to assault Gibraltar with the flight of Indian arrows. But remember that most of the gigantic evils that have afflicted humanity, such as human sacrifices, idolatry, torture of witnesses and criminals, the persecution of witches, intemperance, polygamy, slavery and the slave trade, or war, could, with equal or greater assurance, claim exemption from criticism or rebuke on the ground of their antiquity and their universality. Yet all these abominations now lie more or less under the condemnation of the enlightened sentiment of Christendom, and their dark shadows are passing away before the rising light of a nobler and purer civilization. And in this book, he just goes on to make arguments against tobacco use, the taxes and the complications from the tobacco trade, and he gives some facts to readers that tobacco is one of the most poisonous herbs in the herbs species, and just a small little grain could kill someone. And then he makes a reference saying, well, you don't really hear about people dying from coffee, so you're better off drinking coffee, because it was considered kind of a bad habit, drinking coffee all the time. You don't hear people dying from coffee, but you hear people dying from tobacco. And then he gives a story example, I think, from John Quincy Adams, a famous politician, and he says, he was talking to him, he said, I used to be avid tobacco user, and I had he had a stomach issue, some sort of disease or something, or crippled by it, and he quit tobacco, and 2 weeks later he was fine. So he just gives further examples of why it's bad. And that was one of his publications, Anti-Tobacco. There is another one, and this is Lectures to Young Men on Their Moral Duties. Let's see if I could find. Okay, here we go. Coming from an octogenarian, an acute observer of the world, and prompted by a deep interest in the young, these remarks ought to be pondered by every young person. The best success in life, indeed, depends on ourselves, not upon fortune, or circumstances, or friends. The fixed aim, the unflinching purpose, the steady perseverance wins the prize. We see by 1,000 luminous examples how much a regular plan and long continued industry can achieve for one. By the history of the pursuit of knowledge under difficulties and the record of geniuses who have illuminated the world, we are taught that moral rule of three, that more gains more and less loses even the less. Homer was a traveling minstrel, Terence a slave, Columbus a weaver, Ferguson a shepherd, Niebuhr a peasant, Ben Jonson a bricklayer, Burns a plowman, George Fox a shoemaker, Cervantes a soldier, Howard a grocer, Franklin a printer, Defoe a hosier, Hogarth an engraver of pewter pots, Shakespeare a play actor, Washington a surveyor, and Louis Philippe a schoolmaster. It was not genius or fortune only that have made these names great among men, but steadiness and direction to the master plan of life. Every young man ought to read two things: Foster's essay on decision of character and Robert Burns' poetical epistle to a young friend, concluding with these three stanzas. And I'll read the stanzas. I was going to skip them, but I figured I might as well add them. The great creator to revere must sure become the creature, but still the preaching can't forbear, and e'en the rigid feature yet near, with wits profane to range, be complacence extended. An atheist laughs a poor exchange for deity offended. When ranting round in pleasure's ring, religion may be blinded, or if she guy a random sting, it may be little-minded. But when on life we're tempest-driven, a conscience but a canker, a correspondence fixed with heaven is sure a noble anchor. Adieu, dear amiable youth, your heart can ne'er be wanted. May prudence, fortitude, and truth erect your brow undaunting. In plowman phrase, God send you speed, still daily to grow wiser, and may you better reck the reed than ever did the adviser. My task is done, my word is uttered. If I should know that it had been the means under divine providence of arresting one young person in a life of folly and sin, and inclining his heart to the love of virtue and communion with God, I should deem it ample recompensance for the labor incurred. And if I should ever know that any individual had thus been influenced by these remarks, I should yet humbly trust that some good impressions have been made that will endure, some new views and motives thrown into the mass causes acting around you, to prompt you to sterling manliness of life and character. I have spoken, not as a censor or spy or critic, but as a friendly and affectionate adviser, as a brother to a brethren. And if there is one present who has wandered into evil courses heretofore, most earnestly and tenderly would I expostulate with him, and entreat him with fraternal love to turn over a new leaf in the register of life and take a fresh start in a better direction. Now that was lectures to young men on their duties and moral dangers. And that is also a good publication. Both, all the works I'm explaining here are, in my opinion, his best work. So Anti-Tobacco was really good. This one is also really good, especially if you're a Christian. Much of the arguments he makes, if you have any knowledge or care in the Christian faith and the gospel, is nothing should be new to you. But it's on an American perspective, which is pretty interesting, and he hits it on the nail. And this is what you would want to see from a young, patriotic Christian citizen. So this is really great work. And the next one I have is from, and I actually have this book because I ordered it. This is his publication that actually made me introduced me to Abiel, and this was The War with Mexico Reviewed. So I had not much information on the event, and it took me a while actually searching through the United States Online Library of Archives website to find it. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many pages into it, but I came across it, and I read most of the other books related to the war, and this one stood out because it had the most truth, facts, details, and arguments involved too. So, this book is actually an original publication from 1850, one of the first handful that was published by Abiel. So it is very fragile, but I will open this for you. Whoa. So there's the book. Alright, this is the preface. The delay in publishing this review demands a word of apology or explanation. The author was absent in the West Indies for the benefit of his health when the award was made by the judges, and he did not return home until June. Since the date, the leisure which could be snatched from numerous professional duties has been devoted to a careful revision of the work, and the incorporating of some new materials procured at the seat of government by personal research and the kindness of friends. For a session of Congress has intervened since the essay was written, which has confirmed and developed some important points. Hence the attempt is made to bring its conclusions down to the present time. The conflict with Mexico was short and measured on the scale of European warfare, comparatively insignificant. But in its lessons, it is instructive, and in its effect on forming national character, powerful. To draw good out of its evils is the aim of the American Peace Society and the work which now goes forth under its auspices. War is the great social wrong. Like idolatry, the great spiritual injury must fall in due time before the progress of the gospel. To doubt this result seems to presume that the Prince of Peace, Christ, has come in vain, and that the finite creatures can eventually frustrate the plan of the infinite Creator. Meanwhile, for the justification of the humble labors of any individual or society in so stupendous a regeneration, it is enough to say that God works by means and by men. When was the lowest whisper of prayer unheeded, or the faintest efforts unblessed that ran parallel with his benevolent purposes and his eternal laws? The highest ambition of the writer will be amply satisfied if the pages shall contribute to swell in a small degree the rising tide of public opinion in favor of peace, and awaken a deeper abhorrence for the bloody and needless arbitration of the sword. Undersigned, Abiel Abbot Livermore, Keene, New Hampshire, September 11th, 1849. And this book, I would say, probably exemplifies some of his better works. He wrote this as an essay in a contest which was held by the American Peace Society for a review on the war, Mexican War, and he had won, so this was published in response. And this has not only just details about the war, it has a lot of philosophical, it has a lot of Christian analogies. Let's see if I can find. Each chapter also has a quote before the book, which I think is another interesting ad by the author, which I really like. I'll explain. This is chapter 16, I believe, illegalities. And at the beginning of the chapter he says, Laws are silent in war. Quote by Cicero. And then I'll read a little from this chapter. It has already been strongly intimated, if not declared in so many words, that the laws of nations and the Constitution and laws of our own country have been repeatedly and flagrantly broken in the war with Mexico. But in order to set this subject in a more vivid light, we propose to devote this chapter, if not the most important, at least one of the most curious in the history of the day, to the various illegalities which have been committed. And this chapter just talks about how the war was unconstitutional, illegal, and just morally wrong in a Christian point of view. This book is really, I don't know if I'll be able to find another here. I should have it on my phone. Let's see if I can pull it up real fast. Should have had this ready. Should be right here. I don't know where I did it. Oh, here it is. This is another quote from another chapter. The true destiny of our country was this. Your mission was to be a model for all governments and for all other less favored nations, to adhere to the most elevated principles of political morality, and to apply all your faculties to the gradual improvement of your own institution and social state, and by your example to exert a moral influence most beneficial to mankind at large. Instead of this, an appeal has been made to your worst passions, to cupidity, to the thirst of unjust aggrandizement by brutal force, to the love of military fame and false glory, and it has even been tried to prevent the noblest feelings of your nature. The attempt is made to make you abandon the lofty positions which your fathers occupied, and to substitute for it the political morality and heathen patriotism of the heroes and statesmen of the old and antiquity. That is a quote by Albert Gallatin, and he was the president of the Treasury of the United States and one of the longest members of that position. He's considered a great figure in early American history. And I will not give too much more details on the book because I want to leave some of the great references and details for our readers. But that is what I have for Abiel Abbot Livermore. I figured this video would be important because I could not find much on him, and when I actually went on YouTube, there is nothing when it comes to an autobiography or biography or historical record. So I figured I would be the first, since I'm doing kind of my own study on the period and much which involves works by Abiel Livermore. So if you're interested in early American history and the Mexican-American War time period and a lot of Christian and philosophical details, facts, and lesser known stories, I would check out some of the works by Abiel Abbot Livermore. He deserves to be recorded among some of the great Americans in this country, and if you read any of these works, you will understand why. Thank you for watching, and I shall have some more videos. If you are interested on any of the books I covered in this video, you could watch some of the videos I have. I did do a review on the war with Mexico, reviewed by Abiel Abbot Livermore, so you could watch that. But the book itself could be found for free online at the Library of Archives website, along with all the other publications. And I shall go back, show a picture of him. Another great American figure, and one that should be recorded and remembered for taking a true stance on some of the issues in our country's history. Thank you for watching.